Two of the most popular and best reviewed movies right now are Twinless and Plain Clothes. And guess what? They also happen to be gay storylines. But despite all of this hype, are they actually any good? Well, I'm gonna let you know. Twinless is a film about a man who meets another man at a support group for people who lost their twins. Now, this movie thrives on knowing very little about the story, but don't leave yet, because I'm going to be talking about some elements of the movie without spoiling it. I was a huge fan of this writer, director, and star of the movie, James Sweeney, because I saw his first movie Straight Up. So the follow-up to that movie was already intriguing. And let me say, this movie does not disappoint. In fact, I think it even exceeds my expectations. It's very good. I would say maybe even great, and I'll let you know in a little bit why. What's really brilliant about this movie is that it moves beyond a setup premise. And what I mean by that is that most movies you see nowadays, there's a premise that's set up and the rest of the movie is just fulfilling that conflict. But this movie does subvert that expectation, and I don't want to say why, but it does so in a way of traditional great storytelling. Not all stories have to be this way, but some really beautiful storytelling methods are when you start in one place and by the end of it you end up completely in a different place. You feel like you are not 2 steps in front of the movie. In fact, you are just locked in to see where it's going to take you. And this writer-director has such a strong talent for dialogue. And a lot of the comedy here is delivered in these quick, rapid-fire dialogue exchanges. Sometimes they're way too fast for me to even pick up on. I have to like rewind it to understand the joke. But I would say though, even though this movie has a mixture of comedy and drama, I think it leans more heavily on the drama. There is some comedy sprinkled in, even though the comedy is more on the dark side, if you're into that. Now, if you've already seen any reviews talking about this movie, you know they probably mention an actor by the name of Dylan O'Brien. He is somebody I didn't know. I had, known of them, but I wasn't familiar with their work. But let me say, if those reviews were praising it, they are correct. This is a astonishingly good performance. And it's one of those performances that you feel like this is just a real life character of how good it is. And that's also a sign of good writing, because even the supporting characters in this movie, like the boss character and the mom, even though they're very minor, small bits, you do feel like these are real people. And they're fully fleshed out. And also, this movie does a great job with these beautiful cinematic flourishes that do not come off as indulgent. And what I mean is, they use stuff like split screen, which could come off like kind of showy and like, look what I can do, but it's not happening here. It actually does enhance the storytelling and makes it for more an intriguing experience. What's so good about this movie is the precision in storytelling. And what I mean by that is how it delivers and conveys a story in a way that feels super prepared and ready, in a way that I would say the closest thing is like a David Fincher movie, like The Social Network, and that we feel like a lot of this is not just being made up as we go along, even though some great movies are made that way, in the editing room. This feels like it's very much just going based off the script and this precision, and I totally felt like I was in good hands throughout. And that's such a good feeling to have, that we know that this person is going to have something in their back pocket that they've prepared for. It's just this feeling that I got, and it's just a wonderful experience. This is one of those rare times that only happen once or twice a year, that a good movie transcends that in an extra like 10%, where it turns in my head into a great movie. And it has that factor to it, this movie did. And it just really did become one of those like threshold movies where it's like, I would say, one of the best films that I've seen of the year, in that it exceeds those kind of just good movie expectations and transcends that into the great movie land. And this movie had that. It had that. Keep rambling on. I want to talk about this movie. Plain Clothes is a movie about an undercover police officer whose job it is to go to a mall and capture men who are trying to hook up. But the story takes a sharp turn when he begins to realize that he's having feelings for one of them. This is an extraordinary piece of cinema, probably one of the best films of the year. The way that the film is presented is so unique that it really draws a breath of fresh air into a story that you think you might have already seen. The film takes place in the late 90s and it utilizes some video camera technology of that time to incorporate it into the main film to further put you into the main character's mindset. And it reminds me of another gay movie that I've talked about on here called Urbania, and the use of film editing to further immerse you into the story. Unfortunately, film editing is sometimes a hidden art form. I would say most times a hidden art form, because you don't really see what is taken out to make the film good. But there are some exceptions to the rule when film editing is very showy and obvious, and this film is a great example of that. I could see some audience members being off-put by this use of film editing, but if you allow the film to really effectively take you into the main character's mind, you will have such a great experience. And the film taking place in the late 90s, they do a good job incorporating some of the elements from that era, like you see some very baggy jeans and oversized t-shirts, but it doesn't do so in a hokey way that makes you feel like they're exaggerating it. And the film is held together by some very strong performances by the two leads. You have Tom Blythe, who is playing this very repressed character that you can sense he's having all these feelings kind of boil up to the surface. And the way that he controls his eyes in scenes tell you a lot of things. And also we have Russell Tovey, who plays the love interest in the movie. And you might recognize this actor from the Looking series. And he plays this super charismatic love interest in the film. There is a really memorable scene between the two of them in a beautiful movie theater, and this scene really does capture that feeling of new love. Aside from this romantic scene, there are some very steamy scenes that take place between the two main actors. And I don't want to give away too much, but there is a hookup scene that happens in a location that I have never seen before in a movie, and probably will never see. But let me just say that the scene is visually beautiful and it just blooms with colors. The use of juxtaposing this video camera footage with this very film-like texture, it helped utilize the power of cinema without having to verbalize things in an obvious way. It's effectively using cinema to its greatest strength, because even though, you know, dialogue and sound are very much important parts of cinema too, at the end of the day, this is a visual medium and this film is utilizing that to its full potential. Even though the film consistently utilizes this editing technique, when the film does need to be quiet, it does slow down, and there are moments where things really do feel calm. If you watch my videos, you know that I often use this Kubrick quote, at least it's attributed to Stanley Kubrick, that every story has essentially been done before. It is the filmmaker's job to try to do it a little bit better, and this film definitely does it better. It's so comforting to know that two of the best movies of the year are gay storylines. It just goes to show us that the gay agenda is working, and soon we're going to need more straight movies to counteract all these gay love stories. If you are interested in watching any of these movies, I'm going to have some affiliate links in the description. If you've already seen these movies, let me know if you liked them. I had a tremendous amount of fun, and there are oftentimes a need to remind me why movies are the greatest art form ever, and these two movies were good catalysts to remind me of that.